All right. So today, tonight actually, what I want to talk about a little bit um, about hardness, JNAT hardness, JNAT Tomo Nagura hardness, what it means, maybe shed some clarity on it. Hopefully, I don't make things more confused than it might seem already. So, I have a couple of stones and a couple of Tomo. This is a Nakayama Maruka Tsusahi, very hard. Maruka stamp, just a stamp. Trust me, it's very hard. This here is it's actually Nagura, Makawa Shiro Nagura, full set of Asano stamps. This is Tenju, mid-range type of stone. I know it's huge. I use it as a bench hone for mid-range work, near finishing stuff. Beautiful, nice stripes. This is very hard. This is not. This is softer. It's like the little Nagura that you buy in a three-piece set, but huge. Right over here, bigger Tomo Nagura. It's almost as big as the horn I'm using. Actually, this one is very soft. Another big one, another big Tomo. Harder than this one, and this piece here is one of my favorites because I love Karasu. That's a crow pattern. I know you don't see any crows there, but it's a thing. It's a design, and Karasu means crow pattern. And this one's really nice. And this one is harder than either of these two stones here. And then we have a couple others off camera. All right. This is a Nakayama Karasu. You can just barely make out some of the thing. Some people call it phantom. It's just Karasu. Just happens to be light. Phantom Karasu sounds cool. Sometimes I say that, but whatever. And then this one here, again, almost the same size as my horn. And super hard. Nakayama Sai, nothing special, no stamps, a little bit of skin, but actually this one in its own right is it's a contender for a hone. It's almost the same size as what I got here. See, it's a little short, but it works. All right, so this is actually like my favorite. My favorite Tomo Nagura. Excuse me for the pause there. I had a low battery warning on my screen. This came as a cracked stone, and I cut it down, and I got two pieces out of this big piece of stone. I was like, fish it to hell. And when I work on my hardest stones, like this is the Tomo I pull out first. But if I hone on it and I don't like the feel, maybe it's in the stone and testing it out, I might swap it out. I might go to this one. I have a couple others. So anyway, so what happens here? Try not to reach too much in front of the camera. Sorry about that. Working on my bench and it's a little crowded. So, soft, a little harder, notably harder, very hard. So let's say, for example, I have this out. And let's just say I want to use this stone with one of these Nagura. So if I take the very hardest Tomo, this guy over here, right, and I make a slurry, most of it's going to be from this stone. Now that may seem obvious now, but sometimes people get confused. So what does that mean? That means I'm honing on predominantly Tenju, and I'm not honing at all on knocking on the side. Now, if I take this puppy and I make a slurry, you got to test, but if you're going to pick up some slurry from the Tomo Nagura, well, it might happen, but you're not going to get it from the hardest one. You're going to get it from one that's softer, but you don't know if this is soft enough. So you try it. You look at the slurry, check it out. And if you're looking to only hone on this, then, you're not picking up anything from here, you're good. If you want to mix, then, maybe you have to move to the next softest one. So then you're going to work with one of these two. And you hone, well, you make a slurry and you check it out. Now, why do you want to do that? I hate to say it, but there's no formula, and there's no way to know whether or not you're going to get where you want to go by having 100% 10 juice slurry, or 80% 10 juice slurry, 60%, you know what I mean? You just don't know. You got to try it. I keep a lot of Tomo Nagura around for this trial and error process, but this is what happens. All right, I'm just saying, it's just the percentages. Softer Tomo on a harder stone is going to yield slurry from mostly the Tomo. That could be good, could be not so good. You got to try it. What about with a harder stone? Well, it's kind of the same thing. Put the softer Tomo on it, and you're going to wind up predominantly with slurry from the Tomo. And as the hardness increases, the percentage of slurry from the Tomo is going to decrease. When you get to the hardest ones, with the harder stones, something sort of magical happens. These two are just about as hard as each other. If I go to slurry here, I'm going to wind up mostly with slurry from my stone and not my Tomo Nagura. Doesn't make sense. Well, it's the way it is. Particle shape, particle size, particle density, particle friability, all these things factor in. You really start to notice it on the harder stones. For example, I have a Carasso Shovel, very hard, stupid hard actually, and that Carasso is the only stone that when slurried with this Tomo Nagura, the slurry will be predominantly from the Tomo Nagura. I don't know why that is. Well, other than the reasons I quoted, I don't know why that's the only stone I have that, why it works that way. So, people have softer stones, they want a new Tomo Nagura. You think, well, maybe I need harder, maybe I need softer. You don't know until you try. The magic is in, the working, the pressure, your blade, your stone, its makeup, your Tomo, its makeup, combination of these two together and their makeup. There's no formula. Honing on JNATs is not about a recipe. You can try and formulate one once you have your pieces set up, and then okay, I have this Sheffield, and I have this hone, and then, I use this, and sure, with experience, you can put that together. After you try everything else. Because you never know. You may wind up with a better result by using a softer Tomo. You may wind up with a better result by using a harder Tomo. There's no rules here. All right? So, you see most guys that, hone and sharpen in Japan, they'll have like a box in the... Sorry about the break in the clip. Apparently something exciting happened in the living room. I don't have one of those, red lights that says taping in progress, so subject to interruption sometimes. Not a problem. For what it's worth, it was pretty exciting, so there's that. Anyway, back to the stones. Another thing to remember is that there's an interplay between the particles from two different stones, maybe the same, type of stone, in the sense that it's a finishing stone, but they came from different holes in the ground at different times. So they're not going to be exactly the same. And you develop a kind of a magic, okay? You could probably spend the rest of your life trying to prove it scientifically, but through trial and error, you just find what works. When I have a very hard stone, and I use a very hard Nagura, which is my typical honing thing, I tend to favor very hard stones like this one. I'll grab fairly hard Nagura, and I'll try it, and when it's new and I don't know it, and then I'll try a couple others, and I'll see how it feels. You can feel it under the blade. That's your feedback. And when I say I've matched a Nagura to a finishing stone, Hanyama, Hanishi, Awaseto, generally I've tried a couple, and I don't start off with saying, oh, this is a level whatever, and so it needs a level whatever. No, that's not how it goes. I'll try anything. You never really know before you try what you're looking at and what you're going to get into. Now, hardness, in this scenario with making slurry is one thing. Hardness with the base stone, that there's a certain, fact, right? So as I'm honing on this, no matter what, the amount of slurry or particles released from the base stone is minimal, or not there at all. Could be that it's not happening. So what I am doing, 100% of what I'm doing, or at least close to that, is breaking down the slurry from this. I'm not releasing any more particles, and as that slurry breaks down or whatever, the blade starts to get finer, sharper, keener. If, for example, I'm honing on a softer stone, and this is actually big enough to hone on if you wanted to, no matter what, you are always going to have particles continually released from the stone. Even though you're breaking down the slurry, you're bringing coarser particles in, or particles that are acting more coarse, okay? So you're gonna hit like a level where you can't get any sharper, or the slurry won't break down anymore. I mean, that's just a fact. Because if the slurry is continuing to refine on the very hard stone, we accept that because that's what we see when we hone. That tells us that the base stone, those particles are going to act somewhat coarser than the slurry. So this is one reason why I stick to the harder stones. It's a little bit harder to eke out the performance, to get it where you want it. Your touch has to be really light. And someone would say, well, what about, water-only laps? If I use the softer stone, whatever, and then I use water, and, how is that not finer? Well, sometimes it might be, and sometimes it won't be. And it depends on your stone, and it depends on how it's made, or how it was formed, and how you're treating it with your pressure, the condition of your edge when you're honing. We all like to think we're like superlative, world-class honers, but trust me, that's probably not the case. And all these things factor into the end result. And at some point or another, you say, I'm done. Then you get a strop, and you burnish it down, and you go. It's shaving. It's we're not formulating rocket fuel. So things don't need to be on that like knife edge of perfection. Or at least we shouldn't be imagining it that way, because it makes you nuts. I know it's a lot of fodder for the internet buzz that goes on, but I think if you took 1,000 finished edges and put them under a microscope, a good one, made to be, like a metallurgy microscope, something that's made for inspection of flat, solid metal surfaces, I think you'd see probably, like 900 completely different looks if the magnification was high enough. so you don't have to make yourself crazy. If the blade shaves, it shaves. If you don't like the way it shaves and you rehone it, you figure out that progression, the next progression, you try it, you like that, you try and stick to that, you learn, how to, discern the differences in feedback so you can gauge the next honing, and how that's feeling, and you just try and iron it out that way. People sell stones, they say level 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 plus, 5 plus plus, 5 plus 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 plus. Yeah, I don't know how you figure that out. This is pretty damn hard. So is this. One of these two is probably technically harder than the other, but I really don't care. When I get to a certain level of hard, then it's hard enough. And then I look for something that's harder than that. There's all different types of hardness too. I have a Nakayama Namito that's very hard, but it absorbs water pretty quickly. This is equally hard, but it won't absorb water at all. They both give up superlative edges. This piece right here, not sure if it's Haka, could be anything actually. Didn't come labeled. I might have notes written down somewhere. Maybe it's on my website, I'm not sure. I use these actually for dressing stones. They make wonderful dressing stones because I can just go clean across, and I'm covering edge to edge, and I'm minimizing the amount of doming or concaving. And you want the edge flat. Well, you want the stone flat. I want the stone flat anyway. Some people think bellied stones are great. I think that's ridiculous, but whatever. I don't have to shave with their edges. They don't have to shave with mine. I know what works best for me. Flat works best for me. Anyway, I'm off topic again. This was about hardness. So, harder stone, softer Tomo. Slurry is going to be mostly from the Tomo. Harder stone, harder Tomo. You might have a mix. You might have pure Tomo. You might have pure base stone. Depends on the stone. If you have a softer stone, use a softer Tomo. You might wind up with a mix, and you have to gauge it. Different levels of hardness will yield different percentages of Tomo and stone. And then with a softer stone, if you use a harder Tomo, you're going to predominantly wind up with base stone slurry. Depending on what you want to do, what you're looking for, what's on hand, what works for you. You may want to try all of those or just one of those. Me, I like to experiment. But, that's a little bit about hardness. I hope I didn't confuse anybody more than they were originally. And, the goal was to kind of sort of just talk about hardness in general because it's a buzz in the world of JNets. People all the time ask, I want the hardest, super hard stone. And, what kind of Tomo do I need? Well, I guess the right answer there, you need all of them so you can try. I try to match one that gets you out of the gate, but, get you out of the gate with success. But trial and error down the road, you might yield different, better results, results you like better with different Tomo. So anyway, that's it. Tomo Nagura, Awasado, hardness.